Hello and welcome to the ADHD Support Talk Radio podcast. ADHD Support Talk Radio is sponsored by addclasses.com. Sign up for a free webinar by going to www.addclasses.com. ADHD Support Talk Radio is the longest running podcast specifically for adults with ADHD. My name is Tara McGillicuddy. I am the creator and I am the co-host of ADHD Support Talk Radio. I am a woman with ADHD. I've also been involved in the online ADHD support community since 1997. I'm a senior certified ADHD coach, and I also offer lots of support resources for adults with ADHD. You can learn more about me and the products and services I offer by going to my website, www.taramcgillicuddy.com. And this is the second podcast episode for 2025. And I'm trying to get a bunch or a few sessions or episodes in during this second week or first full week of 2025. And I do want to make some announcements. On Monday, January 13th at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, that's New York, Boston time, I will be offering a free Ask Me Anything webinar about adult ADHD and productivity. And you can submit your question when you register, or you can submit it live during the webinar on January 13th at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. If you can't make the webinar because people in different time zones and we have stuff going on, there will be a free 2-week replay. You can sign up for the webinar by going to add.com. I had originally scheduled the webinar for the 7th or the 6th, so Monday of this week, and I just wasn't feeling well. My energy was drained, at a bit of a bug or a cold, so I rescheduled it, and I had people who sent in questions for the 6th. So what I've decided to do is take those questions and answer them. In the previous podcast, I answered one about planning, and this one is about time. So here is the question, and I'm going to do my best to answer it. How to help my brain register the passing of time. This is a short question, which I love short to the point questions, but this is a very loaded question, and I want to thank the person who submitted this question. So the answer may not be what you want to hear. I don't know if you are familiar with the term time blindness. This is something in the ADHD community that I don't know who actually coined it, that those of us with the ADHD type brain may have what is referred to as time blindness. If you can't visually see, you're blind. Time blindness is on that idea where those of us with ADHD, we may not be able to, or it's really hard, challenging for us to actually sense and feel the passing of time or time. Combine that, the world that we live in now, going back 15, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we had more structure around time. Let's just take television, for example. Going back 25 years ago, we all watched TV at the same time. We had shows that were on at 8 p.m. on a Thursday, and you either watched it or when the VCRs came out, you recorded it. But we knew that show was on at a specific time. And we had other things like that. Now you take television, we have so many on-demand style apps where a lot of the shows we watch, most of us, probably 99.9% of us, don't watch them at the same exact time. And it's like that with appointments, a lot of on-demand things. So you take the combination of those two things where, we may have time blindness as a person with an ADHD style brain, and there's not as much structure or scaffolding around time. Going back years ago, we were forced into feeling time. And then let's also take technology, which is great. Very few of us probably have dial analog style clock. So that's the clock with the face that you can see. Over the past several years, most of time is digital. Most of the clocks we see are digital, unless you choose to have an old style clock or it's still there from years ago. So when you look at the analog dial clock, you can somewhat sense, so you see, you're forced to see that time's going by, and there's a visual representation of it, a circle, almost like a pie, so to speak. So that's one thing to somewhat help you with it, is get a bunch of analog clocks, have a clock directly in front of you, a wall clock. If you wear a watch, a lot of us don't wear watches anymore because we have our smartphones. If you wear a watch, if you have a smartwatch and you have the option to have a face on it, put that on it. That might help you a little bit connect with the passing of time. But what I want to challenge you to do is think about, what are the 3 things that are affecting you when it comes to your brain not registering the passage of time. And I know a lot of biggies for those of us with ADHD are being late or having problems with punctuality. Sometimes it's just totally losing track because we hyper-focused or we're doing something like that. What's getting in your way, or what is it you'd like to change? And so the recommendation, one of the ones I just gave, is the clock. That might help you. And make sure it's in front of you. Make sure it's something that you see. It's at eye level. So I think what a lot of us want to do is, we may not necessarily feel the passing of time. And I'm someone, I don't really feel time. Every once in a while, I'll do this thing where I guess, maybe it's intuitively what time it is. And sometimes I'll be spot on. I know what the number is on the clock, or it's a couple minutes away. But I have no idea. My body, my brain, my energy didn't feel and sense the passing of the last 30 minutes or 5 hours or whatever else it is. And then we have another thing to take into account. I don't know if this happens to everyone, but it usually happens to a lot of us with the ADHD type brain, is that when something is boring or mundane, or we don't enjoy doing it, it feels like time is taking forever to pass. I remember when I was in junior high and high school in a boring class, I used to just sit there and watch the clock. Of course, it was one of those analog clocks, because I was bored and didn't want to be there. And it just felt like it took forever. It was painful to get through some of those classes. But on the other hand, if we are doing something we enjoy, if we're in the zone, if we're hyper-focusing on something, if it's stimulating, it feels like time went away in a flash, like we went through time in a flash. So those are 2 examples about how, even if you're trying to sense time, depending on what you're doing, time feels very different to us. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Dr. Edward Hallowell. One of his sayings that he talks about is, those of us with ADHD, we live in 2 time zones, now and not now. So if you look at it from a different perspective, you may not actually be able to register the passing of time in your brain, but we have things that can tell us how much time has passed. So maybe think about, when you do something, set a recommended amount of time, like an amount of time that you would like to spend on it. So mindfulness can also be helpful. So instead of just sitting down and playing a game like Candy Crush or something like that, I don't even know if you do that, I'm just giving an example because that's something sometimes I do. Set a boundary or a recommended amount of time that you're giving yourself permission to spend that time on. And set a timer. So say it's 20 minutes, set a couple timers. Set one for the actual 20 minutes. Maybe set one that goes off halfway in between. That's, okay, it's been 10 minutes. I'm halfway done. And also a 2-minute type warning before you're ready to switch from one activity to the next helps you helps your brain prepare for that transition. So this is something that I do recommend. So those are the things, like how much time has passed. Your brain may not ever fail it, and that's okay. So what is it you'd like to change, or what is it that's getting in the way when you don't register, when your brain's not registering the passage of time? And this might even be something where, depending on what it is, that you could do like a wake-up call type thing where you have somebody call you and say, okay, if it's something important. And then also maybe think about, are there different activities that are getting in your way, that are sucking your time away or causing your brain to go deeper and deeper into the non-time zone, whatever it is. So maybe those are things like when you're trying to get out of the house, when you're doing something that you're not doing them, or having routines and rituals can be very helpful. I remember when I was in high school, I think I had to be at school like 7:30 a.m. and I'm not a morning person, so that was challenging then. I would have my routine. In addition to having the routine, I would listen to a morning radio show, and that radio show had the same format every day. I knew that when I got out of the shower, and I think around the time I got out of the shower, they had like a traffic or whatever they had, that if I got out of the shower and it was like before that, I was doing great. I had plenty of time. If I got out of the shower and they'd already passed it was like, okay, I really need to speed things up because I might be late. So that might be something to also do, in addition to having a routine of what you do, connect it to something that's time related. And one thing that might be helpful is if you listen to music, if you have a song list, when you listen to it in the same order all the time. I know I'm one of those people, when I listen to music, I just put it on random. But if you're trying to connect with time, say you listen to 4 songs, you know how long those 4 songs take to play. So what you're going to connect your activity to is, okay, this is a 4-song activity, a 3-song activity. So those might be things to really focus on. There are ways to connect. These are some suggestions. When somebody is blind and can't see, you're not forcing them to try to see. You're having accommodations to help them get through life better. And this is the same type of thing. If you have time blindness, which a lot of us with ADHD have, yeah, you can become more mindful. You can put clocks on the wall. You could train your brain to become maybe a little bit better at registering the passage of time, but you may not ever feel time, sense time the same as somebody without time blindness. So it may make more sense to focus on those strategies and really look at what's going on when you're not registering the passage of time. And it's important to know how much time has gone by, but you can do that with something like a clock or a watch or the other types of things that I have recommended. So I want to thank you for submitting this question. Like I said, it was a short, simple, to the point question, but it was a very loaded question. And I do want to remind you that I will be offering a free Ask Me Anything style webinar on Monday at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can submit your question when you sign up or during the live event. And as I said before, there is a 2-week replay, so you can listen to it for 2 weeks if you can't make the live event. And if you can make the live event, you can still listen to it for 2 weeks too. Because a lot of times when we have these webinars, it's really helpful to listen to them multiple times. And if you're someone who's listening to this way after, January 13th, if you would like access to this session and dozens, I think actually at this point hundreds of other sessions from addclasses.com, you can subscribe to the ADD audio library, and there's more about that at addaudiolibrary.com. All right, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode of ADHD Support Talk Radio. I will be back in the next couple of days with another question. And make sure if you want to ask a question that you go to addclasses.com and sign up for that free webinar. Like I said, my name is Tara McGillicuddy. Oh, and if you found this helpful, if you are listening on YouTube, comment below. Let us know what you found helpful, if you can relate to this. Do you have any suggestions about how to deal with time blindness? What strategies have you tried if it's something that I didn't recommend? All right, thanks again. If you would like to learn more about me and the products and services I offer, you can go to my website, taramcgillicuddy.com.